something that we see. It's something we feel. A whisper across centuries, a bold cry from a distant culture, or a familiar memory from our own home. In this video, we are going to a journey through the grand halls of the masterpieces of Artemisia Gentileschi, to the colorful world of K-pop, and to the vibrant, soulful heart beneath Jose Rizal's words. Join me as we explore the art that doesn't just hang on a wall, but the art that moves me. For the world art, I want to highlight one of my favorite artists, Artemisia Gentileschi. Artemisia Gentileschi was an Italian Baroque painter and a daughter of Orazio Gentileschi, who was a major follower of the revolutionary Baroque painter Caravaggio, a pupil of her father and of his friend the landscape painter Agostino Tassi. Her first known work is Susanna and the Elders, which she made in 1610, but probably one of her most celebrated works, which is also my favorite, is the painting of Judith beheading Holofernes. Artemisia actually made two renditions of the painting, the one that she made in 1612 and the other which she made in 1620. At the age of 17, Artemisia Gentileschi was raped by her mentor, Agostino Tassi. And when he did not fulfill his promise to marry her, Artemisia's father, Orazio Gentileschi, brought Agostino Tassi into trial, wherein Artemisia gave evidence under torture. So at the time, she was only 17 years old, very young, very innocent, and very naive. And it must be really a harrowing experience that scarred her for life. So I think that her works succeeding that experience really manifested her rage. Her work, Judith beheading Holofernes, in her first rendition of it, because it was also said that during the trial, that is also the time when she first started painting her first rendition of Judith beheading Holofernes. And that, for me, if you really see the details, if you look at the very tiny details, you can really see the emotions behind it, the feelings behind it, the context that really drive the artist in doing such incredible piece of work. And for me, what really stands out for me in the painting is the expressions of the figures and the characters in the painting. You can really see the maidservant having stoic expression, that and the Judith in the character in the painting was having a fearless attitude, that she's not scared of what she's doing. And I think Artemisia put herself into Judith at that painting, that if she could just have the power, if she could just have the opportunity, she would also do the same to her oppressor, to the people who violated her. She represented the female rage, not through her actions, but through her works. And even years have come, she still inspired a lot of women, just like me, to stand up and be themselves, to fight for justice, and to fight for what is right, to fight for women's right. And that is why, that is how much I love her, that I actually made a very kind of a lengthy art analysis of my favorite painting of her, of course, the Judith beheading Holofernes. So this is actually, I think, a 3-page art analysis of her painting. So yeah, I have a lot to say about her painting, because that is how much I love her, that is how much I adore her, and I hope to be someone like her in the future. Someone who uses her platform to also empower others. So that's it. So she is my favorite artist, and I hope that you would also look into her other works and be amazed as I am amazed by her. And that is all for Artemisia Gentil's. For Asian art, I initially want to tackle about a traditional Asian art form like Chinese art, Islamic art, Egyptian art, or um, Southeast Asian art. And the first thing that comes to my mind was the terracotta warriors in China, which were a collection of life-size clay sculpture of soldiers, horses, chariots that were buried with the China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, in the 210 BCE, and talk about how, despite there are thousands of them, individual sculptures have unique facial features, despite also the limited repertoire of body parts, and how they are intricately made. But I've come to realize that I want this to be something more personal. I want to talk about something that I have connection with. So for this segment, I want to talk about traditional Asian art form. I want to talk about a modern Asian art form, and that is K-pop. So K-pop is short for Korean popular music that comes obviously from South Korea. So it can incorporate a variety of influences, including reggae, hip hop, salsa, and other types of music. So K-pop began in the early 1990s when a group called Seo Taiji and the Boys appeared in a South Korean TV program in April 1992. Their music was a mix of American dance, hip hop, rap, and rock. They sang about social issues, which was new for South Korea at the time. The group's success then led to changes in censorship laws in South Korea, and the K-pop industry has begun. Despite being a modern Asian art form, K-pop has also been integrating in recent years traditional Korean instruments and concepts into their music and clothing. A premier example of this is August D or BTS Suga's Daechwita, which was released in 2020. So the song was built around a sample of an actual traditional Korean military march or Daechwita, and featuring instruments like the taepyeongso or Korean oboe and jing or a large gong, alongside modern hip-hop beats. The music video also incorporates traditional Korean settings and clothing. Another prime example from BTS is with their song Idol, which was released in 2018. The song and its music video prominently feature elements of Korean folk music, including rhythms, chants, and the use of traditional instruments like the kwangeri or small gong and the jangu or hourglass drum. Another example is from Blackpink's Pink Venom, which was released in 2022. So the instrumental incorporates the sound of the gonggongo or a traditional Korean zither-like string instrument. The members also wore modern hanbok outfits during their historic 2023 Coachella performance. I have been a K-pop fan since 2017, and just like the other girls, I was also drawn into it by the handsome and pretty faces of the idols, highly choreographed dances, and catchy music. I also made a lot of friends at that time, and I was actively participating in streaming parties and votings. But when people started criticizing K-pop and throwing homosexual remarks, I feel embarrassed to tell other people that I am a K-pop fan, as they might criticize me and say that I have a very poor taste in music. That is why I slightly turned my back to K-pop. It was actually just recently when I started listening to K-pop again. And I felt so stupid turning my back on something that has been my safe space for years. Because some people just decided to hate on something that does not fit their standards of music and entertainment. This experience taught me that I should not let other people control my happiness. It taught me to be myself despite oppositions and hate. So what if I don't understand their lyrics? I mean, there's Google Translate. And besides, music is a universal language. Sometimes it doesn't need to be understood. It needs to be felt. Talk about arts, we always think about the visual arts, the paintings, the sculptures. But for me, who is an avid bookworm, literature also comes to mind. That is why, for Filipino arts, I want to highlight a book, or rather, books, that I know that we all already knew about, or even read at some point of our lives. It is from an author who we have been hearing ever since, and that is Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo. These two pieces of literature that we might even say that we owe our democracy to. You might be asking, what is new about these books? We already get it. The books are great. It has basically launched the Philippine Revolution. And Jose Rizal was an amazing man. He was a hero, he was a martyr, he was a doctor, a scientist, a polyglot, an author, and he was a man that we all are not. What is he doing in an art appreciation video when we are already talking about him in our history subjects? He is already overrated. Why can't you talk about other underrated artists that also deserves the credit? But for me, I believe that him being overrated makes his works underrated. And why is that? We just focus on the impacts of these books rather than the content of these books. So for this segment, I want to talk about how good these books are, not just because of their impacts, but because of their content. Reading these books has always been a requirement that it became a burden. We are more focused on the impact of the books rather than on what really is on the book. If you really read the book in all of its glory and not just a summary like what most students often do, you would be able to appreciate Rizal not just a hero, but an author. How he was able to make a character that represents real life people without making them one dimensional. Characters in his books are not inherently good, and they're also not inherently bad. They are complex characters that can also be bad and can also be good, based on their personal interests, just like real people do in real life. So, for me, what I really love about these books are the plot of the story. They are unheard and unique, something different in comparison to books published at the time. You might also think that the books are all serious because it is about nationalism and oppression. But Jose Rizal also included witty and funny dialogues that balanced the intensity of the book. The part of the book that I personally love is the exchange of dialogue between Ibarra and Peloso Potasio. It was just the right sarcasm, sternness, and cleverness. There was even a part of the book that made me cry. Besides on the frustrations that the social issues that they were facing at the time still resonates today, but also to the scene in which when Maria Clara and Ibarra were saying their last goodbyes on the veranda fronting the river where was Ibarra was escaping. Even though I was reading a translated version, it is an English translation, it still captures the emotions of the scene, proving that Rizal is not just great in making political dialogues, but can also capture romantic scenes, making him a dynamic author. Analyzing Rizal's work out of the historical context is not just about ignoring their importance, but a different approach and also highlighting the fact that Jose Rizal is a great author, not because he makes political stories, but because he makes complex characters, convoluted plots, and can beautifully capture scenes just with his words. That is why while I was reading these books, I have a lot of annotations that I made because these are dialogues that I deeply connected into, that some of them are funny and quite witty dialogues, and also are serious dialogues that I feel like still resonates in our modern issues today. So that is all for Filipino arts. The Execution of Lady Jane Grey is a painting by a French painter, Paul Delacroix, who was a very popular in the 19th century and specialized in historical paintings. It captures the essence and tragedy of Lady Jane Grey, the young queen who was beheaded at the Tower of London at the age of 16. Her condemnation came after she was placed at the heart of a political struggle catalyzed by Queen Mary I. Her political rise was supported by Protestant figures who wished to place her at the head of the country in order to preserve Protestantism against Queen Mary I, who eventually succeeded her. The young woman ruled England for 9 days before political machinations accused her of treason and led to her execution on February 12, 1554. Lady Jane Grey has been my favorite historical figure, and whose life and eventual death keep me up at night. Despite being portrayed by numerous artists, the portrayal of Paul de la Roche with the play of light and dark beautifully captures the tragedy and innocence of Lady Jane Grey. I just found her life unfair. She was dragged on a political war and promised a crown that she did not even want. She became a pawn in a game played by a highly patriarchal society where lives of women and girls were valued less. And thinking about the fact that she was executed when she was only 16 years old makes me think about her dreams and aspirations in life. At some point, she was just like me, a young girl. But sadly for her, it was the axe that ended her fate. There was just really something about works of art that captures women's struggles that moves me in some ways. And it makes me reflect on the opportunities that I'm currently enjoying because they did not give up in fighting for women's rights. And I aspire to continue their campaign and further inspire others. I hope that through this video, I was able to give justice to the artists and works of art that I have highlighted. Being able to fully express my appreciation for these artworks gives me the satisfaction that I was able to share my knowledge and admiration. May we all continue and aspire to explore arts that move us.